Also, before we get started, I just wanted to go over some housekeeping rules. Want to make sure everyone mute their phone. And Stacey has agreed to sit with us for an hour. So we're going to extend our lunch and learn webinar instead of the half an hour, because I'm excited about hearing all that she's doing right now and what she's going to be able to share with us as she continues to survive and thrive in this world. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat feature and we'll take Q&A at the end of our interview. Is that okay with you, Stacey?
Absolutely. Love Q&A.
Okay, I'm going to cut off everyone's camera. All right. All right. They're coming in. All right. It is 12 o'clock noon and welcome to GPI Live as we have our lunch and learn today on surviving the pandemic as a small business and a federal contractor. I am so excited to have Ms. Mollison here because Stacey started with me at SBA and I've watched her grow, and I'm just in awe in seeing steps that she's taken to grow her business and continue to thrive in this space.
Who is?
I'm going to have to mute.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to mute you, but you unmute your phone, okay? Once I mute everyone. Okay, so if you can unmute yours, I just want to. Okay. So if you could open up and provide us with a little how you got into this place, and let's just talk about how we actually ended up meeting and how I've watched you grow and really master this game. I can say I'm so proud of you as a protege to see where you've gone, where you started and where you are now. So I'm just going to turn it over to you. And if you can just go ahead and give us a little background on Ms. Mollison.
Good morning, Paula. Thank you for having me on. I'm really excited to do this. My name is Stacey Mollison, and I am the president and CEO of Libra Management Group. I started out really completely differently as a real estate company providing brokerage and sales in the industry. I started that business in 2006. And in 2007, I actually got into distressed asset sales in the real estate industry as we started to go through the downturn. And one of the reasons why I got into that, I've been doing real estate since 2001, started my own company in 2006, particularly to take advantage of the 2007 and 2013 downturn that we had in the real estate industry with the financial crisis. I saw an opportunity there and really structured my business to address that need then. So focused on distressed assets. And in I worked for several large financial institutions. I really didn't do the more person-to-person transactions. What we did was we provided asset management services for large financial institutions. And then we moved on to the GSEs, which was the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. And we got the opportunity in 2010 to become a subcontractor for HUD. Okay. And that business went very well. And
what were you doing in that business primarily as a subcontractor?
Yes, I was a subcontractor primarily in that business.
And what were you doing?
So I was doing the whole life cycle A to Z in terms of management for the prime and HUD in terms of managing their assets. And when I tell people that work was really hard because you were responsible for the whole life cycle, from informing the actual homeowner that there was a foreclosure, all the way to taking it through to evictions, getting the property ready for sales, dispossession of the sales, and then management of the actual property. So I tell people there were 166 tasks that was related to one asset. So managed all the other vendors, and you were even responsible. I mean, when they made us float money, you were even responsible for turning on the utilities in your company's name for the government assets. It was crazy. And so I think one of the most important things that I learned from there is I really knew how to manage and then be responsible for a lot of multitask really well and be responsible for a lot of different things.
And how many properties were you having to manage at any given time?
Over 200 plus properties.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So it was a lot, but it was a great learning experience. It was really good income. And I think it kind of helped to mold me into the business person I am today. Okay. And so as I was doing that business, I was also president of a local real estate trade association and became very engaged on the advocacy side in that business. Because the other thing that people didn't understand about that business is that minorities were really not getting a lion's share of that business. We were the one disproportionately affected by the crisis, but in terms of reselling the distressed assets, it was not really a lot of minorities participating in that business. So I actually became one of the people that went around the country talking to large financial institutions about supply diversity in their network. At that time, they had passed the Dodd-Frank Act, and they were standing up the offices of minority and women inclusion around the country. And I see that Anne-Marie DeLeBon is on the call today. I see her. Anne-Marie and I actually work together to work with large financial institutions in terms of helping them to understand why it was important to broaden their network and include minority and diverse businesses.
Okay. And that's what was interesting when I relocated from Philadelphia from the SBA's office at the Atlanta office. I was getting I met every real estate agent here in Atlanta. Everybody, we were going after this big contract. And I just kept telling them, you're not ready. You all don't have a clue.
At that time, Paula, those contracts, believe it or not, the HUD was the largest owner of distressed assets. That was a $800 million contract that was broken up into 3 parts. I actually serviced on 2 parts of that contract. Not only did I own a real estate asset management business, but I also opened a field service and preservation company that were also doing the clean out. So I had 2 sides of the business going. But yeah, so that was it. But what happened during that time is, in doing the advocacy work, I met Ed Jennings, who at that time was an Obama appointee, and he was the HUD regional administrator for the Southeast region for Region 4. And I was doing so much advocacy work with HUD as well as being one of their subcontractors that he started talking to me about. He said, Stacey, you know, I see you as a subcontractor. You really need to learn how to learn about the different certifications that are out there and see how you could apply as a prime on our real estate contract. And that's what really, and he said that to me in 2013, when the market had really started shifting. And so that's what led me to come down to SBA, where, of course, I met you.
Yes, as I said, I met, and at that time, I think there was the contract was coming up, and that's why I was getting
Right.
a lot of the real estate agents there,
Yeah.
trying to get another revenue stream.
Right. And I will say that I came down to the SBA for several classes, wanting to learn about small business certification, learning about HubZone and 8A. And the minute I sat in your class, Paula, and I want y'all to hear me say this, yeah, I stalked her, I really did. So I sat in Paula's class. At that time, she was working at the SBA, and she was doing the local training in the Georgia district office. And I sat in her class, and she said out loud, "I'm so sick of you real estate agents coming in here, you real estate brokers coming in here. You're only concerned about the HUD contract. There's a whole wide world out there of government contracts, and you guys are so you're so tunnel vision about." And she was like, "Let me tell you about one of the multi-million-dollar contracts I had, and it was sending out the lead-based paint addendum that you guys use. I don't even know anything about real estate." I said, "Wait." She said, "Stupid money." I said, "Wait a minute." I literally, after that class, went up to her. And like I said, at the time I was president of Empire Board, and I was like, "Can I please have you come and talk to my members?" And when I went to SBA and asked for Paula to come out to the organization, they told me she was too busy. She already was scheduled, and I literally had to beg, call the Georgia district director, Terry Dennison, and ask if she could come out and do some training. And then I went back and said, "Paula, can you please help me? I'm really interested. I'm fascinated. And I promise you that I will stay engaged and take it to the end."
Yes, she did. Yes, she did. And I remember her saying, "If you just mentor me, I promise I will apply it." And she did. Because I was just giving you my disc, and here, give me, and I have all these templates. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. And you applied it. So that's what made me want to pour into you, because I knew you were serious about your business. So, so your first contract, you got your certifications, and then what happened from that part?
Well, let me say, as it relates to certification, I want people to be really clear about it. It is a process. If you're applying for a small business certification, particularly one of the formalized certification, 8A, HubZone, you really should follow that process. And I think that most of the time people get frustrated with the level of paperwork that's required, and they abandon the process. It took me about 8 months from start to finish to get my certification. I will say that I was really grateful to Paula that she gave me a process for putting the application together, almost like a book, responding to all the requirements there with a table of content. And I got through the first phase. When it came back, I had 25 corrections, and then it sent it back again. So that process really has been streamlined. When I did it back in 2014, it was manual. Now it's all online. You can upload the docs. So Paul, I want to thank you for that, because I think like that was the biggest thing for me, being able to know how to put the package together.
And also understanding that you cannot have that brokerage NAICS code in the corner. Most people don't even recognize or even know that they have their accountant is assigning a NAICS code on their tax return. And understanding being a broker, that's one of the, you're not able to apply into the program as a broker. Because we had to reshape the story for you, even for the application, to help.
Absolutely.
And share what that process was, because you had to really define to the SBA how you really was doing management consulting, correct?
Right. So Initially, as I said, people typically know real estate brokers as simple person-to-person transaction. I'm selling someone a house. I go, I show them a house. I do the deal. I sign the contract. We get a commission. That wasn't really the kind of sales I was doing. We were doing management. We were managing that asset for the entire life cycle of that asset on the behalf of the government and large financial institutions. So I consider that to be management. And so once Paula indicated to me that SBA doesn't really like to see the word brokerage because they deem that as more of a third party a responsibility, she encouraged me to actually retool the model for my business and create a management and consulting firm. So we had to even go back on my 1120S and get my my CPA to write a letter asking, because they needed 2 years of my previous tax return. So we changed it on the current year that I was applying, and then we had him amend the tax return and write a letter saying that he needed to change the brokerage. He had, I think it was 531211, which was the real estate brokerage code on my tax return. So we changed that to 541611, which is management and consulting. And then we restructured the entire business to create a management and consulting firm.
Great. Yes, yes. And then you got certified. And how long did it take? It was 8 months before you got certified. How long did it take for you to obtain your first contract?
Probably about another 10 months or so, because I got my first contract in, I believe that was July of 2015. So I got my 8A certification in October of 2014. And so, I'm sorry, August of 2014. And then I got my first contract the very next year. And well, two things. So my contracts were a little different. So I'll talk first about a small business contract and then a 8A direct award. So I got my 8A certification, and then my very first contract, when I got involved in the federal government space, I really thought I wanted to be a facilities management firm. And because I came from the real estate construction, property management, doing trash out, clean out, I was really familiar with that side of the business, property management, facilities, that side of the business. So I really was focused on that. And so I was marketing heavily to the General Services Administration, the GSA. And I had been going up there with my capability statement, meeting with contracting officers and contract specialists up there. And I got my first opportunity was an opportunity in Salem, North Carolina. That opportunity really didn't work out because initially it was an opportunity for $35,000 to do some repairs to a car, to the building, a courthouse, who the parking garage had some issues. But when I went there, I realized we drove. They called me, and the way that it works is they contacted me, they sent me the scope of work, and they said, we'd like to know if you're interested in this opportunity. We need you to go down and do a site visit. So we literally, myself and one of my my coworkers, Sherry Stewart, we drove the 9 hours down there, North Carolina, and we went and we did the site visit. And what we had recognized was that we actually had some engineers meet us out there, and the scope and the intensity of that work was really above what the government was willing. They wanted to do patchwork, and that building really needed to be addressed. And so I want to say this to people: all work is not good work. For us, engineers told us it was a liability to take on the responsibility of doing that job. And when we came back, we felt as a brand new company getting involved in this space, that was something we did not want to take on, because what they were willing to do, we came back with the report. We told them some of the challenges and concerns that were there, and they only really wanted to do that piece of work. That was $35,000, and it really needed maybe about $200,000 worth of work. So we passed on that opportunity, and we were really upfront. We had a conversation with the contracting officer, and we passed on it. And because of that, that contracting officer remembered it. And she said, you know what, I appreciate you doing that. I know you're a new firm. So when I got the second call, it was for another opportunity from a different contracting officer that said, this particular contracting officer said, you seem like a hard worker. You've been coming up to GSA. You've been trying your best. She wanted to know if I could offer you this opportunity. So our very first opportunity was for window washing and of 2 courthouses down in Jackson, Mississippi. It was a small business opportunity. Same thing, we had to go do a site visit. We went out there, did the site visits, presented ourselves well, and we were able to get the opportunity.
Okay.
Restoration. And we just hired we found a subcontractor, had that subcontractor meet us down there at the courthouse. And when we did the site visit, then we had them to present their pricing for the work, and we were able to get the work. So that was our very first contract, was a window washing and restoration contract of 2,500 windows at 2 courthouses in Jackson, Mississippi.
Okay. So and that's something that wasn't even in your state. So you're sharing with them how sometimes you have to leave the state to go there. It's not all necessarily in your local area. Okay. So the second contract, your first 8A contract.
So my first 8A contract, again, I have been marketing to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, and I have been marketing to them because the other thing that I stayed engaged with Paula, and Paula kept teaching me that we were, it was such a hard road to get construction and facilities contract, and they were more project-based. Even that first contract that I received, we were on it for about 4 months, and then it was completed. We didn't get ongoing services. They ended up giving it to it went into another program, really. And so we didn't get an opportunity to continue to service that contract. And so Paula started really talking to me about looking at professional services opportunities instead of more project-based construction, facilities management type contracts. And so I started marketing to CDC. And one of the things I've always been really good with is conference management, because I've been involved in a lot of organizations that I've always been a part of holding conference. And most people know me for putting on conferences and activities, classes, training, large scale training, conference management. Paula encouraged me that was, even though I didn't have that skill in the federal government, that was a skill that I could market to the federal government, that I had past performance that I could show. Yes. And so I marketed that past performance, and our very first contract was a sole source 8A opportunity where one of the folks I was marketing to at CDC reached out to me directly and said, hey, we have an opportunity in conference management, meeting room management. Would you be available for that opportunity? Of course, I said, yes, absolutely. And the way that it's so different, because with the SBA, with the Small Business Opportunity, when we went down to Jackson, Mississippi, so for all the people that are trying to get into the federal government space and wanting to understand the differences with the rules. So a Small Business Opportunity, it has what's called the rule of 2. right?
Yes.
So with that opportunity, even though GSA had contacted me and wanted to do a site visit, when I got down to the site visit, I was not the only contractor hired. They must offer it to at least 2 people. And so when I went down to Jackson, Mississippi, I got down there, there was another firm doing the same thing, had got offered the same opportunity. We both did the site visit, and we both then, and I think what helped us to get that opportunity is that we actually had someone, our subcontractor, we actually had 2 subcontractors that met us down there. We met for the very first time on the courthouse steps. And when we went into the meeting, I told them make sure they signed in, you know, as Libra. And then we also were able to show that we had people who were, our subcontractor was someone who was very experienced. As a matter of fact, one of the subcontractors that we had there, he had worked on the building we were doing a site visit of. And he was the initial contractor that had done window cleaning and restoration when the building was built. And so what I noticed is that the project manager ended up talking more to my guys than he did to the people that the other vendor came with. And so we were able to get the opportunity because at my understanding, what they had already had 2 failed attempts to do the cleaning on that building because it's rope cleaning. You have to have people jump on ropes from outside the building to clean it. So, and then the difference with the SBA 8A sole source opportunity is that you get the call and then they forward the opportunity to the SBA, and then the SBA accepts the opportunity on your behalf and it goes specifically to you.
Yes, and I think for me, that one of the other ones, I'm always fascinated because I remember when you received the contract doing the lab and the HIV testing for the monkeys at CDC. It was like, we don't know anything about that, but it was still about the same process of using the current staff to staff that contract. And what I'm practicing with everyone is that we don't have to know anything about that contract as long as you're able to get the subject matter expertise to place on that contract, correct? And what I like,
Very correct. And I think we have to realize that even if you do have some personnel that 9 times out of 10, if it's a new contract, you have to go get personnel. So I think we think that even the large companies, you have to put out an ad, you got to interview people, you got to, no one really has staff just sitting around waiting. You may have staff that you can move across contracts, but 9 times out of 10, particularly if it's a new contract, you have to stand it up. You have to bring people to the contract. So I'm over that fear.
Okay, good. Very good. Yes. So we're at 12:30. I wanted to get into a little more of what you're doing right now as it relates to surviving as we're going through this crisis right now. And what are you seeing live? And that's why I like always bouncing with you, because I'm talking about, from the government's perspective and what I've done previously in the business, but you're right now living in it. So can you share some things as it relates to how you're beginning to survive and thrive in this, and provide some tips for folks that might be struggling at this time?
Absolutely. I think the first thing is that I've learned, I don't know if you guys remember Snowmageddon, like when we had the big ice storm back in 2014. That's when I was really first getting into this business, but also winding down my asset management business. And I remember that it was, for me, when HUD asked for our business continuity plan, we had written to win the contract. And when they wanted us to implement things in our business continuity plan, I really started realizing how important it was, as well as the service side of contracts, because remember, we were managing assets. So really was a challenge for us. We had to look at safety versus, making sure that we looked at the client's assets. So it was really difficult for us in that environment. And that's really when I started looking at making sure that I created a business model that incorporated what we would do in the event that there was another business interruption, a large business interruption. And so we started looking at, well, what were the opportunities for situational telework within our contracts? What did that look like? We realized that the service-based contracts were definitely easier to manage in the event of a crisis. And then what did our contracts say about telework? Whether telework is acceptable? How do they look at situational telework based on any major crisis that we happen to be engaged in? And so we, fortunately for us, that those things now apply. Most of my staff continue to work. We do have some staff that's considered essential and are on site. Our folks that work in the lab, of course, they're essential staff, but of course they're in the lab, so they're already practicing safety. They have to wear safety protection equipment and things like that. And then we have folks that on our military bases that's considered essential. But they do have the opportunity. We just, again, ask that question, do they have the opportunity to work? So in the case of a base closure, they still will have the opportunity for situational telework. So it's really important as we think about, our business and going after government contracts, that we really create a business continuity plan, and that we really understand the contracts that we're signing and how those contracts adapt to any interruption of service.
And is that something that you would address once you award that contract, to make sure, now that we're experiencing that, before you sign that contract, would you make sure you address those types of issues? And is that the only type of issues that you're having? Or you're not really having any issues because you're not missing any beat? They're continuing to pay you right now, correct?
Yes, and to a certain extent, right? Number one, you want to read through your contract. As you're getting those contracts, they do spell out whether telework is accepted in the contract. And then they typically would put in the contract that if situational telework will be allowed. But now in this particular instance, you want to make sure. The other thing that's extremely important is you want to make sure, like me, I have a server, right? So I've always have a server. We make sure that we have an internal IT person that's paid on staff, so that he can provide what's necessary in terms of protection on our server, and making sure it's compatible according to the government rules and requirements. So you have the equipment. I typically get laptops for my back office staff, and they get to sign in and log in through the server. So nobody's at home working on their own, personal computers that's on the back office. And typically on the government side, if you're providing services to the government, they typically provide government issued equipment. It's called government furnished property. And we actually keep a log of who has a government furnished computer. And if you don't, and they allow you to use your own computer, then you have to have access through a card that you're used. So all these things are really important that people are starting to pay attention to, and that they're making sure these things are in their contract, and their business is prepared to deal with that as well.
So you think by you diversifying your business at the right time into the professional service was a great move, and you're also playing on the product side too, right? So you're doing a little bit of
So it's really important. I think services is a really good field to get involved in. But one thing you taught me, Paula, and I'd never heard it anywhere else. I've been to tons of training. I'm a training junkie. So I've been to tons of training about, just improving my business. What do I do in the federal space and all things. But one very important thing that Paula taught me, and to this day, it's still not widely encouraged, is that there should be two pieces of your business. There should be a service side and a product side. Paula taught me that early on, that we really should be looking, because what products does is it helps your to keep your cash flow going, because it's more consistent and short-term money, right? So once you deliver that product, you get paid. The margins are usually a little better. So you've always encouraged me, and you paired me with someone who taught me about products. And so I started doing products early on in my business. And so we now, during this crisis, we now have the opportunity to expand that business. And we've been busy working on expanding our product side to address COVID-19 related medical supply. Because I'm a medical supplies vendor for the federal government. I already have contracts in medical supplies with the federal government.
I've had a couple of students that have won contracts from the product side, and they've had challenges in working with the manufacturers and distributors. Can you provide any insight as far as what they should be expecting when they're getting on that product side that's different, and some things that they should be aware of?
Yeah, so typically we're a reseller, right? So you're building relationships with large distributors and manufacturers, and it's really important that they're almost like getting it's a credit application, right? So you're applying to these large distributors and manufacturers, and you're wanting to be a reseller of their product. So there's an application process. So you apply, and then they approve you. They'll let you know based on, they run your credit to let you know based on your credit. You have to fill out a credit application if they're able to give you credit, and that determines what percentage of the buy you would have to do up front. If you're approved for credit, they will allow you to get a percentage up front and then pay the rest in net 30. So all of the things are really important. Identifying credible, valid distributors and manufacturers. You have to go through them. A lot of times, if you go direct to the manufacturer, they will redirect you to the distributor. And some may tell you they already have their small business vendors, and you need to go through them, and they're already distributor, and then you go to that distributor and become a vendor for them. Some of the manufacturers, you can call them directly. They have small business reps that deal. I'm with a large, they're a manufacturer and a distributor. I'm with a large medical supplies distributor, a very large one, and I signed a 2-year reseller contract with them.
And how long does that process usually take in getting into that loop?
It really doesn't take that long. It could take maybe a week or a couple of weeks to do that. So they want to know, a lot of times though, they want to know that you already in government, if you want to sell to the government, or you already a government contractor, you already doing business with the government, what is your experience, and they assign, and you can talk to the small business rep. I have a personal small business rep for that large manufacturer distributor that she contacts me. I put my orders in through her, and we're able to discuss a lot of, she actually informs me about a lot of changes within the industry. And I'm really appreciative that I have a rep who is concerned about seeing my business grow, because if my business grow, her numbers grow. So we have a vested interest in making sure that we both do well.
Well, I've had a couple of clients on the product side where they ended up sort of competing with the manufacturer, and that became a little I'm not sure, and I guess I'm not sure how to tell people or what they should be aware in scenarios. One of my
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So the manufacturers, yes, but let me help people understand this. The federal government does not expect a small business to have the same pricing structure as a large business.
Good.
So even if you're competing with the manufacturer, you could never offer the pricing that the manufacturer is giving. Plus, you guys are in two completely different pools. Mm-hmm. The manufacturer cannot compete with you in a small business opportunity.
Okay.
So if you're competing on the open market for large open opportunities, yes, you're going to be battling with the manufacturer, right? But even with the federal government, it's the same as services as it is as products. They have small business set aside, woman-owned set aside, service disabled set aside, and so you need to be paying attention to what pool you're playing in.
Is one more challenging than the other? It's just the same?
I actually think products is a little easier than services, and it's definitely much less people in terms of human capital that's required than on the service side. And I think you definitely can do most of that remotely, remotely. And I think that, you can really have a very good product side. And then the other thing is the product side, you have a real opportunity for global business. Like I started doing products overseas as well. So that really has opened my eyes to doing business. I've done both service contracts and service and product contracts. I'm from Guyana, South America. So I started there. And so for the last 2 years, I've done both service and product contracts with the government there and with private organizations there. And for me, I think it's fascinating, and I think you have a much easier time of going global. And the last thing I'll say about that, if you're thinking about looking globally at opportunities, particularly on the product side as a importer, exporter, the Minority Business Development Agency under the Department of Commerce is really a great, they have a whole manufacturing and innovation division that's geared towards helping businesses to go global. And the other thing is that I want y'all to write this down, EXIM, EXIM, EXIM Bank is also a part of the U.S. trade.
Can you spell that again? I'll put it in the chat.
EXIM, EXIM Bank. And so EXIM offers opportunity to ensure your invoices and buys when you're doing business with foreign entities. So they help to vet, you get insurance, and then it's backed by the U.S., the EXIM Bank. And so I was able, through the Minority Business Development Agency, I'm also a client of MBDA Atlanta that's housed at Georgia State. And they connected me with the U.S. Commercial Services, which is a division that deals with helping small businesses go global. And they connected me with it. And as a matter of fact, I was so excited that just on Friday, the director of the small business program for EXIM, Michael Jackson out of Washington, D.C., he called me on Friday and was just checking in. Stacey, I know you're trying to grow your business globally. I'm just checking in. We want to make sure if there's anything that we can do to help you. And I told him I was really surprised I got the call. And then he actually sent me some information about what EXIM is doing to help businesses and stuff. So there's a ton of resources out there. It's not just the SBA. The SBA is one entity, but there's always also the Minority Business Development Agency, the U.S. Commercial Services, particularly if you're looking at going for opportunities globally.
So, the number one question always is, how are you financing all of this? How did you start in the beginning? Because how are you financing
Yes.
it?
And so I always tell people the lesson that I wish I had before getting started, that
Okay.
I try to share with newbies now, is get financing ahead of this stuff. So like, make sure you're building your lines of credit. You are improving your credit score, because a lot of times as a new business, you don't have a business credit score. And so you have to use your personal credit as a guarantor so that you can get the business line. So like, those things I wish I knew ahead of time. So one of the things that really helped me was, I'll always tell you about 3 cards that really helped me to grow and get my business trade lines of credit, my D&B score up, right? Was getting a Capital One Spark card, right? The Capital One Business Spark card, right? So let me say this about that. The Capital One Spark card, you have to be a personal guarantor for that card. The reason why I like it, however, is that they're willing to give you a pretty good balance and credit line, and they report to D&B monthly.
Okay.
And so it helps to immediately, it's a business credit card, and they report to D&B monthly, and helps to build that credit. You can also use like a Home Depot card. The other card that's really good, that does not go on your personal credit report. Remember, Capital One goes on your personal credit report. So every time you use that Capital One card, those balances up and down do mess with your credit, your personal credit. These are things that I think people don't really know. And I have to learn, like, make sure I pay, a certain amount by the date that it's due, to keep my my balances down so that it doesn't adversely affect my personal credit. The other thing is an American Express Platinum business card, an American Express Plum business card, and a Bank of America a business card. Those cards do not report to your personal credit. They strictly, you need to use your personal credit to get the card as a guarantor. However, they do not report on your personal credit. So it's fantastic. You're using the credit card. It's not adversely affecting your personal credit in terms of, as long as you're paying on time. And they move those credit limits up quickly. You're able to request increase in credit limits. The Capital One, they automatically, like every month or other month or so, every 2 or 3 months, they'll increase your credit line if you're doing really well. And we've really been able to build strong business credit through that. So that's the credit card side, right? Which is where I would advise that you start now.
Okay, good.
You could start now, building your business credit through applying for credit cards and using those credit cards for any business activity, gas, whatever you're doing, food. If you don't have a contract yet, you're paying your office bill, whatever you can utilize to use that credit card, you use it so you can start to build.
Can you run those credit cards down again? I'm gonna put them in the chat.
So it's the Capital One Spark business card, and that's SPARK, like spark plug, Spark business card. That's the American Express Business Platinum, the Platinum business card. And that's the American Express Plum card. And the difference between those 2 cards, the Plum card allows you to almost go out next 60. So with the Plum card, within 30 days, you can pay just a portion of the card, the balance, and then you can extend it out another 30 days. So the Plum card's really, really good. I like that one. And then the American Express Platinum Business Card. And then after a while, you know, people think that with the American Express, you got to pay the whole balance off at a certain time. As you become a really good client for them, you can change the terms on that card.
Okay, good.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the last one is the Bank of America. I think it's Bank of America. I think Citi or Chase. I'm not sure which one. But you want to make sure that when you're researching business credit cards, there's only like 4 cards that don't report to your personal credit. So you want, I know definitely Bank of America and American Express, because those are ones I have personally, and I specifically picked those because they don't report to your personal credit.
Very good. Very good information.
Yeah.
Very good.
And then in terms of lines of credit or how do we finance contracts themselves, I started out with using factoring. So I know that people are familiar with factoring, which is that you're really getting financing on your receivables. So
I call that check cashing stores for businesses.
Go well, Paula. It did not go well. And so I really got into a bad relationship with a factoring company. And thank God, because, and this is where it's important to have your stuff intact. My accountant manager is awesome. And he's always on top of paying bills on time, getting things done in a timely manner, that we were able to get ourselves out of that contract because we always did what we were supposed to, and they never did. So they were not following the rules. They were harassing our contracting officers.
No, they're horrible. I've had them.
That they were not supposed to do, contacting our contracting officer, harassing her. And so we were able, even my contracting officer said to me, she pulled me aside, she said, "Young lady, you're going to do well in this business. Get rid of those people. They're a pain. You can find a better company. Do not let these people bully you." And she even sent them an email like, "I will not talk to you. This is not your contract. This is this vendor's contract. You want anything to do with her finances, you talk to her first, and then she'll send me an email CCing you if she wants me to give you any information." So we were really pleased that, you know, I think it's just about the relationship, just because I talked to my contracting officer. I apologized profusely for their behavior. And she really just encouraged us, that she felt that we were in a good position. We turned in everything on time, and we could do better. So we found Now Account, and that's NOWACCOUNT. That's Now Account. And they've been an excellent partner for us. And so Now Account, what's a little different with them than Factoring is that they're not a factoring company. They're really considered almost like a merchant account services, in the way that they operate like a credit card. And so we're able to get a $1 million credit line based on our invoices. It's based on your receivables, but and your credit, but they charge fees like they do merchants. And what's fantastic about that with Now Account, typically through a factoring company, you cannot write off the fees for a credit line or for a factoring company as allowable expenses when you do your taxes. However, because Now Account is like a merchant services, and they act like credit card, like bank fees, and you can that is an allowable expense when you do your accounting.
And that makes sense. And as I said, I got tied up with a factoring company in that first business. And when you're desperate, it's good. It's almost like crack, because it's immediate money, but I ended up giving away $90,000 of profit just on the fees. They don't necessarily get you on the interest, they get you on the fees, because every time you borrow, that's a big chunk of your profit. And people don't understand that. So that's why I say I love seeing your progression and how you've been able to manage all aspects of this. That's pretty good, everyone. We're getting ready to wrap up on this side, but I wanted to share what's going on. Huh?
Say what? A lot of questions. A lot of people are.
Yes, we got Now Account. Eric stated that you have to have a good FICO score for Now Account.
Yes, they go by your credit, but it also depends on what level of business you have as well. And what I like about them, you can talk to them to kind of see where they are. Now, everybody may not get approved, of course, because it is based on your credit history and what level of business you have, or your credit history without business in anticipation of business.
Okay. All right. Well, we got 5 minutes, and I have to do a little of the promo for GPI. And thank you, Stacey, for sharing your spirit, your love of wanting others to do well. And that's what I love about Stacey. She loves to share and want others to come along with us. We want a whole lot of millionaires so we can fly on your Guyana Princess plane in another 5 years, huh? But before we close out, I wanted to share with you what's coming up. On tomorrow, I am so excited that my former boss, John Banks, he's agreed to come to GPI and talk about the loans and what's going on currently with the banks and all of that. So if you all have any questions, I'll be sending out that information. Well, you can go to the website and actually register for that today. But if you have questions, please send them beforehand, because I'm sure we're going to get a lot of people on that webinar. It's tomorrow evening from 7 to 8:30 p.m. On Wednesday, I'm excited that we're going to have Mr. Guy from Alabama. He actually grew his business and sold it. He's dealing with the jets and engineering. That's all above my pay grade, but I'm always fascinated to hear other small businesses share their story on how they're able to grow their business to that magnitude. We also have the orientation session that will be starting again every Saturday up until the 21st. The next round of classes will be April 21st from 8:30 to 9 p.m. And lastly, we are having a contest. This contest is we're going to choose the top 3 winners who refers the most people that will register and sign up and pay for our training. You will have 48 hours to do this, ending April 8th. And whoever the top 3 winners are get access to the free webinar recording that we're doing tomorrow. This free webinar recording tomorrow will be open to everyone. 1 hour of coaching, and you can be put on our new platform of our private membership group. We're also, for those of you that have gone through the program or currently in the program, I've pulled out a separate module that's focused strictly on RFQs. It is the 4-week boot camp, and we're going to start that in May utilizing our new platform. So with that being said, I thank everyone for participating with us, and I look forward to you all continuing the journey with us. Thank you again, Stacey, as always.
Thank you, Paula.
All right. You have any last words of wisdom you want to give anyone?
There are a lot of opportunities available right now. I know that we're in the middle of a pandemic and there's a lot that people are dealing with, but there are a lot of opportunities available on the product side. There are a lot of opportunities on the service side. I think it would be really important to make sure that you're going online and you're looking at what opportunities. There's a lot of small opportunities that are out there. Go to Unison Marketplace. Make sure you're logging on. Paula, you probably should put that in as well, Unison Marketplace, so that they're going online, they're checking those opportunities at Unison Marketplace, and also that they're going to beta.sam.gov, that they're going online and they're looking at contracting opportunities that are available. So don't be discouraged. This is an opportunity to build on forming relationships, get those credit cards going, contact now account, and start working on your plan for what you're going to do once this situation is overcome in the next couple of weeks. So just use it as a planning time, strategically define where you're going to go, what you're going to do, and how you're going to restructure your business so that in the next interruption of business services, you're fully prepared to continue to thrive.
And I thank you, Stacey. And what I don't believe people understand is that contractors are the support system for the federal government. If they do not have contractors, we would not survive. Stacey quoted the number of thinking of CDC. She stated CDC has 13,000 employees and 6,500 of them are contractors. And those of you that are here in Georgia, we know CDC is getting ready to get a whole lot of money. And when you think of the mission of CDC, it's outreach, is data collection, is all kinds of things that they're gonna have a need for. The administrative support. Look how quickly they've gotten the commercials out about staying safe and what you need to do. That's a contract. So everyone needs to think outside of the box and get out of your comfort zone. This is a big, wide world, right? With that being said, I'm going to conclude today and thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate you. Go out there and get it done.
Yes. All right. Bye-bye. Stay safe. Yep.